Good morning.
Testing, testing.
I am here. Sorry for keeping you waiting.
That's okay. Do you hear me?
I do.
Okay.
Loud and clear.
Okie dokie.
Surfnvs.com is Naked Viking Surf for all of your surfboard fin needs.
Yeah, look, Naked Vikings fins, right? NVS fins. I think their Instagram is Naked Viking.
I
Is
think
that
so
right?
too. Yeah.
Yeah, check them out on Instagram. You'll see all their cool stuff. And I know I follow them. And look, it's the fins that David and I use. And I won't ride stuff that doesn't work. I simply won't. My lifespan in the water is coming to a close here, and I'm going to ride the best equipment I can until those final days, which are like 20 years away, I'm assuming. But NVS fins is my go-to for super sick, state of the art ripping.
Yeah, I agree. Follow him on Instagram. It's literally a two-man show. So how do you not love that? Two guys committed their life, both had flourishing careers, and then committed their life to making fins because they knew they could do it better for cheaper, and they do. And you have direct access to them. So I know a lot of our listeners have reached out and sent photos like, "Hey, this is the board that I'm riding. What fins should I grab?" And they say not only give advice, but in one instance, I know somebody, it was Shukin actually said, I've got this quad from Tim Pony in Maui that I just ordered, and I don't know what to order, what fins to get. And I said, I don't either. Just contact them directly. And I think they even said, like, you need a quad setup, but use the front fins from this quad setup and the back fins from this other quad setup. So two separate sets of fins, but we're not going to make you buy two sets of fins. We'll send you the two from this set and the two from that set. We'll just make a solution for you, you know? So little stuff like that is unbeatable in terms of customer service and expertise.
Yeah, look, Naked Vikings fins.com, or no, is it NVS?
Surfnvs.com. And
Okay.
then, or I mean, honestly, get them there or grab them from Real Water Sports. Real Water Sports obviously is our retail partner that we've worked with for like 2 years now. And we talk about the deals that you can get on boards and how vast their inventory is. But you're going to ultimately want a new set of fins for whatever board you buy. And you could buy Naked Viking fins through Real Water Sports, and that's realwatersports.com. So you can kill two birds with one stone there always.
Absolutely. Love it. Yeah, guy. Yeah, guy. Yeah, freaking guy. It's that time, David. It's spit. It is the Tuesday morning, and we talk surf each and every week. David Lee Scales, Scott Bass with you, just spitballing, spitting stuff out at you, throwing stuff around, rumor, innuendo, some fact, occasionally, perhaps. Who knows? Only the listener really knows after they do Google research on what we say. It's just out there. It's far out. And welcome. Good morning.
If we land on a fact, it's a coincidence. It's just
Yeah,
statistically once in a while you're going to get something right.
exactly. I mean, it's, what are they? Blind squirrel theory.
Exactly. Well, I think there's one major news story, and that is the event that happened in this last week since we were finished, I guess, since we last recorded. And my question to you, I'm going to start off with a question related to the Hurley Sunset Pro, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Do we now have to reconsider our stance on Filipe Toledo not being a big wave surfer, considering that he just won the Sunset event?
Of course not. Sunset wasn't even really sunset. It was Sunset Point. It was basically I mean, it's super fun way. It's like a blue water, warm water Bells Beach is what we saw there. Sunset Point is not pure, unadulterated, mean West Peak 12 to 15 foot sunset, or even 8 to 12 feet sunset. It was 4 to 5 feet and maybe 3 to 5 feet. And so that's not true sunset. That's nobody's fault, but just the Mother Nature, sort of throwing a curveball at the WSL's kickoff to the season here, with both pipe and sunset being lackluster. But this was why my interest was maybe a 5 out of 10,
Mm.
was that Sunset Beach wasn't true Sunset Beach. I did watch the semis. I did watch the finals. But frankly, the surfing that I saw was incredible. Um, and I believe that Felipe is now on pace to win another title. He has to be the favorite now that Hawaii is over without any real consequential waves at Pipe or Sunset. And with only Chopu as a real question mark for Felipe right now, not only is he the favorite, he's the heavy favorite. And he's frankly hitting on all cylinders. I mean, his surfing is incredible. You know, he is an incredible surfer in 99% of the waves on tour.
Yeah, you can't deny him that. I think the only reason I posed that question to you is we obviously everybody knows our stance on Felipe, cowardly lion, right? At big barreling waves. But well, because he has that lion tattoo on his chest. That's why I always think about that. Um, but he's got a decent result at Chopu. He's got a decent result at Pipe now, twice, I think. I think last year he got third. And now he won Sunset. And so all the waves that we hold as the standard for where he's not going to do, he's now making quarters, finals, and winning events there. And I agree with you. They aren't running in the biggest conditions, but at a certain point, we need to reevaluate. I don't know what he needs to do for us to reevaluate. I guess the waves have to be 10 foot
Well,
and he has to go.
well, there's that. And I think that's one thing. And frankly, this, my hat's off to Felipe because he has adjusted. He's been able to
That's, I
get
guess. Yeah.
fifths and thirds at Chopu. Like he knows how to get through heats,
Yeah. Yeah.
but he's not like the guy you go, oh, it's that time of the year, survival league. Who should I pick at Chopu? You're never going to Felipe.
I never would
And
have picked him for Sunset, no matter what the conditions were.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So what I think needs to happen, or maybe not, here's a thought, but I believe that the tour needs a stop where surfers have to ride 7/8s and
Yeah.
8/4s and maybe 9/0s. And the answer to that is Puerto Escondido. I
Yep.
think they need to have, once they cut the tour down and you've got less guys, and frankly, I think they should have the finals day at Puerto Escondido with only 5 guys, and you have it over a couple of days in the morning. And maybe you can pull it off, men's and women's in 2 days. I don't know. And I think that surf fans are sort of yearning for this.
Yeah.
And there's been some talk about that, I saw that I sent you a thing where Kong and those guys were chiming in on how lame it is at Sunset that these guys chip in on their 6/4s, into from the whitewater. But anyway, point is, we want to see guys riding 8/4s. And, there's an analogy, or there's a similar situation in golf where the golfers have gotten so good and the golf ball has gotten so advanced and the technology in the golf club's gotten to a place where the best golfers in the world hit drives of 330 yards. So their next shot in, what's called the approach shot in golf, is usually with either a 9-iron or a pitching wedge or a sand wedge. You don't see golfers having to hit 4 irons and 3 irons and 2 irons into the green anymore. Now, back in the day, and I hate to be that guy with my fist in the air, get off of my lawn, but back in the day on the golf tour, the pros like Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino, all these great golfers, even in the 90s, they had to hit 4 irons, and it's part of the game. And I think having to ride an 8/6 or a 7/6 at meaty barreling Puerto Escondido should be a part of the challenge to say, when you say that I'm a world champion, you have to address that part of the equation, which is what we all do as surfers.
It adds a lot more complexity and diversity to the tour. It's like to see Felipe win in waves that are similar throughout the year does make it a lot less interesting. And I know Sunset is obviously Sunset and Pipe are different, but the way that Sunset was, you said, kind of reminded you of Bell's. It kind of has a J-Bay quality to it. So
Well, it's not J Bay. It's just Sunset Point. It's super fun. It's just kind of soft and rippable. And like for you and me, the average person, we'd be psyched on it, 4 to 5 foot Sunset Point, but it's just not Sunset Beach like we know.
And the day that they ran the bulk of the men's competition, though, despite not being pumping sunset, was still super, super good. I mean, it was like barreling
It
down the
was.
point, you know, like I've seen it barrel on the outside and on the inside, but it was like barreling down the point, which I don't remember ever seeing in competition. So they scored for that day. But again, the tour's too bloated. They're running two events simultaneously, so they only get those conditions for, you know, 1/4 of the heats, which makes it problematic.
Yeah, you know, the stars didn't show up. The waves at the stars, Sunset Beach didn't show up. Therefore, the stars didn't show up. And that's just the fact of the matter.
Well, speaking of surfing, phenomenal surfing, actually. I agree with you about what you're saying about Filipe, because everybody else, a lot of other surfers were absolutely on their A game, Griffin Colapinto
Yeah.
namely,
Yeah.
and he doesn't quite stack up to Filipe, you know, and it was, I think, that final heat, you and I were texting a little bit. They got the scoring a little bit wrong, so it was really close. But Filipe, I feel like Griffin is really surfing out of his skin, you know, and he's not quite to Filipe. And Felipe's just doing Filipe, and he's still beating him. And there's maybe one or two of the waves that John got early rounds when John was on fire would be on par with Filipe, and then you could see like a real battle. But otherwise, I feel like Filipe is kind of on a different level. And I love Jack Robinson, and I love Jack Robinson at Sunset, but Jack Robinson, frankly, looks slow compared to Filipe. He looks lethargic. And if the waves were 10 to 12 feet Sunset, Jack is on a whole different level than Filipe. You know, like he would be the guy that you would put money on, and John Florence would rise to that occasion. But when they aren't, when it is head high and rippable, he does look a little bit lethargic to me, and I don't know what to attribute that to. And Filipe does look completely unstoppable.
Yeah. There's no doubt. I mean, I think that frankly, Felipe is in his prime, and he also has the professionalism to be in his prime
Yeah.
for the next 7 years. Like I could see Felipe going on a run because he's settled, he's married, he's got coach, he's
Yeah.
in rhythm, he's been on tour for 10 years. Like nothing's gonna like, if anything from the outside comes in and messes with him at all, it's out. You know, like he will kick it out the door. And I just
Yeah.
feel like he's just for sure the next 3 years. It would not surprise me, David, if Felipe Toledo won 4 titles in a row.
Well, it depends where finals day is. We've expressed a lot of problems with finals day, but ultimately the number one problem for me with the finals day format is if somebody is such a dominant competitor at the venue, then it nullifies everything else. And
Yeah.
Felipe has become the guy who is that dominant at that venue. And so it almost doesn't matter, you know, what has happened throughout the season and how many points somebody has accrued going into that event, because Felipe could come in at fifth and he's always going to win lowers, you know? So they need to either, if they're going to maintain this same concept of we're just going to crown the winner on finals day, despite the amount of points earned throughout the season, then it needs to be a rotating venue or multiple days, you know, like you said, 5 days at Puerto or something like that, because it just allows for too much for one person to dominate, you know, unjustly. And in
Yeah.
this last year, of course, Felipe did earn first place prior to going in, and this year he might as well. So my point is not as valid, but it still is theoretically an important detail.
Well, there's no doubt that things need to change. And it's funny because, you know, we're always like, you know, we're kind of going, wouldn't it be great if there was an equal playing field? And we had thought that lowers was an equal playing field, but now we of course know that it isn't. And we need, you know, waves of concert. We need some spot that
That's all it is. Yeah.
equalizes that friggin' Connor Coffin could win the title at if he's one of the
Well,
five, you know,
but yeah,
or whoever. I'm just
he's
like
never
Nat
gonna,
Young. Let's say Nat Young.
I think
Nat Young could win the world title if he was one of the 5 and it was at Puerto Escondido. Nat
Yeah, he
Young could
could.
easily win. And that's what I'm saying. Like, and that's what you're saying. Like, let's have a spot where it's like, hey,
Well,
man, you got to paddle out on a 7-2 and show some cojones and pull in and drive through some, and, you know.
I guess it's hard to pinpoint a specific spot because there will always be somebody who is better at that spot than other people, of course. So when they were originally conceptualizing the finals day format, Dave Prodan texted me and pitched the idea. He's like, "What do you think of this concept?" And I go, it's an interesting concept, and there's a lot of variables that I probably can't even like consider right now, but the venue should be Indonesia boat trip. If you can finalize it down to 5 people, and then there was a mini event in Indonesia that was a rotating, day 1 is at Macaroni's, day 2 is at Hollow Trees or whatever. And maybe it's a best of 3. And he said, that's even what they were saying. They were like, it would be like a best of 3 heats. And I'm like, yeah, that's perfect at 3 different venues on a boat, but all depending on where's pumping the most, And so even now I think about that, and I think that is the best concept. If there was a right, there was a left, there's a rippable wave, there's a hollow wave, all that. And it would just be, not only is it the best way to figure out who the best is of a top 5, it's a phenomenal concept for an event, like a standalone. I mean, it's the most kind of flawless waves in the world, and it would just be the best event for a lot of reasons. They'd get a lot of mileage out of doing something like that.
There's one reason that it's not a good idea.
Mm.
And do you know what that is?
No.
The time of day relative to North American sponsorship and you and I watching the event. I'm assuming, of course, that I sort of have a North American bias because it would be ideal for Australia. And so it's never ideal globally, no matter where you do it, like trestles at noon is like 2 a.m. in Australia. So you're kind of screwed wherever you are, regardless. So, but
Yeah,
other than that, I think I agree with you. It's a no-brainer. Yeah.
I understand why that is such a big flaw to the idea, but we need to rethink the priorities here, because that concept that I just gave far trumps,
Yep.
Like the importance of running in good waves and making a phenomenal event far trumps what time of day you run the event.
Yep.
And so the fact that they're over prioritizing time of day shows that the powers that be don't fully understand their own business.
Yeah,
But
no,
let's
totally
talk
agree.
but more about Sunset.
Sure.
I think there is a budding rivalry here forming between Griffin and Filipe. They matched up in the final at El Salvador, and it was equally as close. Griffin won that event, and I think Filipe was pretty upset about that, feeling it was unjust, meaning. So I could see this continuing on, and I really feel like Griffin is still on the ascent, and this loss was a sting. Like, he wants to win bad, Um,
Let me
couple of
chime in on that real quick.
please.
What comes to mind for me is this is why there's too many guys on tour. We should already have stats of 5 heats between Griffin and Filipe and John and versus Jack, and like all, like these top 12 guys are really all that matter.
We should also be seeing them match up again in Portugal immediately. We just shouldn't have to wait 8 events to see them match up.
Yeah, and hope that it all works out. And
yeah, totally. 4 other highlights, surfers that I did not anticipate necessarily going into this event that I was completely impressed by. Nat Young, you already mentioned. Nat Young, over the years, I mean, from his rookie year on tour, he has had highlights, and sometimes they were multiple events in a year. Sometimes they were just one highlight in the season. But he's had enough highlights at this point for you and I to really, we should be betting on him. I mean, I guess his lowlights also make us not want to bet on him, but he is such an impressive surfer.
Well, I think he surfs better backside. I think his backside surfing's more scoreable. I'm not taking away anything from his front side. His front side, it's like, okay, it's ace bucking, like he rips, but it's not like Gabe or Idolo or other goofy
Yeah.
foots where you're like, oh, but backside, he's extremely, well,
Well,
and he's from Santa Cruz. That makes sense.
you know who's like backside actually is Ace Buckin.
Well,
Ace
look,
Buckin 2.0, either way you put it. But for some reason, him and Ace's backhand is more exciting.
yeah. Well,
But out
they're
there,
going to get more vertical, and yeah.
and Andy, his style seems to really translate to powerful surf too,
Yeah.
Matt McGillivray.
Well, we were, that doesn't surprise us, right? I mean, we were pretty blown away by him. Was it the COVID year
No, that
or
was
last year?
that was Morgan Siblick, the COVID
Oh yeah,
year,
that's right.
which was interesting. So he and Morgan were traveling on tour together during that COVID year. And Morgan, who we had never heard of other than the Rip Curl movie that they had just put out, finished 5th in the world, and it was like his run through that season was so impressive. And here was Matt McGillivray traveling with him, never making a peep. And we're just like, oh, Morgan and his buddy, whose name we can't pronounce, and then Morgan finishes in the top 5 and then immediately falls off tour the very next year. And quietly, Matt McGillivray has just taken over and taken huge scalps along the way. His 10 last year, the best 10 of the season, and now here he is again, really doing it. Like the guy is so dependable. If Nat Young is Ace Buckin, Matt McGillivray is Bede Durbich.
Matt's way, but I like Bede. I'm not saying Bede's not great, but that's not fair to be.
But that dependability, that strong footedness, like and their surfing style isn't exactly the same, but their approach looks similar. The other two that really blew me away, maybe even more so, are Joao Chianca and Caio Abelli.
Yeah.
Holy cow. If you want moments of thrill, Caio Abelli, every single heat, the guy is an animal. I mean, he's on 14 waves, making insane drops, getting crazy barrels. As soon as he's down, he's back out and getting another one. It's really, really exciting.
Yeah. He's a workhorse. He's sort of like Adriano with good style. You know what I mean? Like you want to root for him. He's just got, his presence in front of the microphone is great. And his surfing's next level all time. So
it really is
easy to be a fan of his.
Adriano with flair, kind of.
Yeah. And better style.
Yeah. And then Joao reminded me, we talked about Joao, I think, going into this event. Joao is here to stay.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt. And we look, even last year we were saying, I can't believe he fell off tour. That guy is intense. And Joao's like Mike Tyson. Like to me, he's just a pit bull competitively, and I think he strikes fear in people, like competitors. You know what I mean? He's got like this just no holds barred, ruthless and raw, but also enough polish to make finals. Hey, check this out. If the draw for each Olympic team was today, who do you think would be in it for the Brazilians?
Well, because you just set it up that way, it's got to be Filipe and Joao.
Yeah. Filipe and Joao. Caio would be third, so he'd be an alternate. Yeah, there's no Gabe and no Idolo in the equation here. In fact, the next Brazilian is Miguel Pupo.
So,
well, he's tied with Gabe.
So Joao, he's got a complete game, right? Like we've seen him in big barreling surf. He's certainly not afraid. And we've seen him in small surf. He does airs. His rail game's insane. He's got good style, all of it. What we end up seeing happening is these kind of quick rise and explosions of these athletes. And really the question mark is in the sophomore slump. So Gabriel beat Gabriel at a certain point, and he had to reevaluate and come back with a new kind of program. Idolo currently is beating Idolo, and he looked unstoppable his world title year, and coming into it, we would have bet money on him. And then he's just got, it's like all of the fame and everything, all the attention, the money, all of that is a distraction. And so he's now got to kind of figure out how to regroup because he still has all the talent. He's youthful. His body's in the best shape it's ever going to be in, all that sort of stuff. So he could
When
be
does
really
Idolo, like, what are the odds on Idolo getting a gold grill? Like his teeth just having diamonds and
high,
gold?
higher than him getting another world title. The gold has been working its way up his body. It started off at his fingertips, which were down by his waist. Then it ended up on his neck. Now it's on his ears and his nose. It's only a matter of time until,
It's
like,
gonna
through
happen.
osmosis, it works his way
Yeah.
from his, it was in his fillings, and now it's going to be just in the front.
There's going to be a gold grill. There's going to be a little diamond in one of them.
Exactly. Yeah. So
his girl's initials in diamonds somehow.
I feel like you've actually looked into purchasing a grill before. You have no way too much
Me?
about it.
Oh,
How do you know
no.
so much about it?
I don't know too much.
So the question
Oh,
for Joao is that,
yeah.
it's like, if
Well,
Joao,
no, this is his sophomore. I mean, in my
not
opinion,
really.
his rookie season was last year. He fell off
Yeah, it
tour.
is.
He
But this isn't his sophomore.
requalified.
I'm talking the sophomore slump for those guys was after they won a world title.
Okay.
How do they
So,
come back after
okay.
that? Because that goes from them earning $300,000 a year to them making 1.5,
Right.
2, and they're buying
Right.
properties. And it's
How do
like,
they handle all of that? Right.
yeah, they have literally like Brazilian supermodels throwing
And
themselves.
yeah, time is being siphoned from them that they normally maybe would have had to focus on what it is they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, you have 2 and 3 mortgages. You have money manager now. Everybody's calling you all the time, like,
Yeah.
all
Personal
of
chef.
that. Totally.
Yeah.
So that's the question for Joao. Hopefully that's down the road and we actually get to see it come to fruition, because if he won a world title, I think that'd be an incredible run. But that's also where my question is with Filipe Toledo. So you kind of mentioned Filipe having family and all this other stuff that keeps him grounded, which I actually agree with you. Filipe seems to have a lot more humility and groundedness and stability than those other athletes that I just mentioned. I guess the only question for Filipe would be injury. Like, injury could
Exactly.
sideline him,
That's it.
And
Everything
he
else, he's a
does,
well-oiled machine. Team Toledo.
he flies high enough to, like, threaten injury, but there's something about his body type, like that lithe, lightweight kind of thing, that also feels more flexible and a little bit more permeable, not so
Yeah.
subject to injury. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, you're right. Look, I'm telling you, he's not only the favorite, he's the heavy favorite. I don't know if they have odds. I know that the guys on Stab do some betting, and I don't look into it. I'm not a gambler, but he's got to be a favorite, the heavy favorite. Okay,
Well,
so yeah, go ahead.
one other highlight wave, singular wave of the event for me, Idolo Ferreira's free fall drop into the barrel. How insane was that?
That was pretty cool, for sure. That was insane. And that just kind of speaks to all of these guys having enough air game that having the board flutter underneath their feet isn't some new feeling. Like, they know how to kind of, like, they expect to get reattached.
That's a good point, man. I would have ejected the moment that flutter happened and kicked the board the opposite way, but it was like a thrilling moment. So Filipe still has those moments. I mean, not Filipe, Idolo. Idolo still has those moments. The other thing is, in terms of, I think I've already said it, but ability level and strength wise, like his body, he is so primed to do the best surfing on tour if he could just put it together, because we still see moments of it like that. So hopefully he can, because I think he would present a really, really incredible threat to Filipe, John, everybody.
As we look again, I'm kind of going back to Olympic qualification, because I think I think if it hasn't started to weigh on people's minds, I think right now it starts to weigh on people's minds. One, there's only 3 events till the cut.
Interesting.
If the cut happens and you don't make the cut, you're not going to make the Olympic qualification.
Yeah.
So right now, Griffin and John are the Americans.
I like it.
The next American in line for an alternate is Seth Moniz.
Interesting.
And then Nat Young. So Kelly's not looking good to make the Olympic team right now. And frankly, he doesn't seem motivated to compete, sort of with, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe his headspace. I really don't know what to think about what
Well,
Kelly's headspace.
Kelly's spoken on it a little bit. He said his biggest motivator for competing this year is the Olympics, in fact. So,
Well, he needs to get on the horse.
yeah, well, I think he's trying. It's just, again, we've talked about it ad nauseum. Waves. Kelly needs good waves to perform at this point, especially compared to Filipe Toledo and those guys. So unless it's pumping, which Portugal. Every time we talk crap about Portugal, I get listeners send me DMs of like the day of days at Super Tubos, like, hey, look at how good it gets. I told it, quit talking crap about it. I know it gets good. It also isn't always good, and it actually more often than not isn't that good. And so more events than not run in marginal surf in Portugal. So when you're looking at Kelly, yeah, he could perform if it's firing, and then in bells, of course, he could perform if it's firing. But if it's subpar either of those waves, I don't see him making the quarters versus the guys who are on tour currently. So he's currently sitting in 16th, which means he's above the cut line, but certainly way below the Olympic qualification line.
Yeah, it's funny. I was wondering, gosh, is Super Tuba is a wave that could be a finals day wave. And does
If they
that,
had a long enough waiting period to ensure that they got super
yeah,
good surf.
yeah. Australians regarding the Olympics, making the team right now, if it were to be held today, the qualification pick, Ethan Ewing, well, Jack Robinson, who's number one in
Yeah.
the world, and Ethan Ewing would be your
Yeah.
guy.
I like it.
Yeah.
And again,
It's
the
interesting.
events at Chopu. So Jack Robinson is smart money there. John Florence is smart money there. And then Griffin Colapinto, I'm fine with being there too. He absolutely charges. And
Oh, for
I
sure.
don't think of him when I think of Chopu, but I think he's fully capable of placing well.
Well, he and John are the Americans right now. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
Well,
By the way, I heard through the grapevine, coconut wireless, so to speak, that the Moniz brothers are changing board sponsors. It's not completely confirmed, but I'm hearing that Seth Moniz going to Sharp Eye Surfboards and Josh Moniz going to DHD.
interesting.
Yeah, more to come on that. I don't know if it's completely confirmed, but that's one of the rumors that I'm getting.
Well, when you see some tech company moneyed up and doing rapid acquisitions, just like blanketing a space, that's what Sharp Eye is doing currently. And I don't know who's behind those decisions and what their exact, I mean, I would presume that they're paying these athletes, like they've really gobbled up a handful of A-listers who had long-term contracts with other A-list board builders. And
Yeah.
and they've got the momentum of like Filipe, Tati, and then getting Kanoa, and they're just running with that momentum to attract other talent and presumably, like I said, paying them. So it's a smart strategy. They're striking while the iron is hot. The fact that they've got the WSL, I mean, they didn't, but the WSL is now doing the shaper ranking things, I think adds a lot more attention. So maybe that is the reason. Maybe they're going, hey, there's going to be more attention on pointy thrusters, high performance shortboards now than ever. Here's our chance to just blanket the space and queue up the distribution, make sure all of that is in line, make sure the factory is fully pumping to fulfill it all. And we can just this year double our business,
Yeah, it's actually an interesting little competition. Trax Magazine has done this in the past where they basically gave the whatever they're calling, what is the WSL calling it? The Board Builders Truck Cup or something. I don't know.
Shapers rankings, I thought, something
Yeah,
like that.
but it's got some name like Board Builders Cup or something. Anyway, Trax did it, and it was Sharp Eye. And so the competition really is between Sharp Eye and Mayhem and Lost and Sharp Eye, in my opinion, just like sort of a layperson's lay of the land, so to speak, on what people are riding. Most of the, majority of the boards are Sharp Eye and Lost. And I think, third through ninth is just a bunch of different boards. There might be some DHDs.
CI
Oh
and
yeah,
DHD would
CI's in
be
there. Yeah.
third and fourth, I would say. And
Yeah.
CI dominated that tour for so long, both on the men's and the women's side. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so they've got ground to kind of make up at this point. They've got Joao Chianca, Matt McGillivray, I believe, Nat Young, of course,
Yeah.
Lakey
Well,
Peterson
there's
on the
some heat
women's side.
wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some heat wins right there.
But the
So,
heat wins, I think, based on the rules, only factor in from the quarters onwards for
oh,
points.
okay. Interesting. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. As a surfboard guy, I'm stoked that they're bringing attention to the board builders and to the surfboards. Of course, the most important, you know, thing
Yeah.
regarding surf culture and our history and so forth and so on.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm surprised it took us this long to get to it, but Molly Picklum also won on the women's side, and she has become the story of the year on the women's side that you and I did not anticipate. I know the guys on Lipped podcast and some of the Australians are way more hip to Molly than you and I were, because they've been
Yeah.
hyping her for a long time, and you and I were focused on Caitlin Simmers. But Molly Picklum, for me, this year has come out of nowhere. When she won the Pipe Masters, the Vans Pipe Masters, she
Wait a
placed
minute. Are
fifth.
you sure she won the Vans Pipe Masters?
Yeah,
Oh, not the Billabong Pipe Pro. Okay.
she finished fifth at the Billabong Pipe Pro. So coming
Right.
off the Vans Pipe Masters win, going into the Billabong Pipe Pro, I was like, wow, okay, that's who I'm really looking at for this event. And
Yeah.
obviously they had to surf marginal surf, but at any rate, she got fifth there. And then she won at Sunset, which I just would not anticipate, like she wouldn't have even been on my radar. So Molly Picklum is actually tied for first right now, which is incredible. And it's a rookie season, right?
Amazing. I mean, you just mentioned it. 2 out of the last 3 events she's won.
Well,
that's a pretty good run.
Yeah, and the Pipe Masters
I know
obviously
it
is not
wasn't a
CT event.
WSL event, but I'm just saying
Yeah.
that 2 out of the last 3 events she's entered, she's won.
Yep.
And they were, more or less legitimate pros she was surfing against at Pipeline. So,
Oh, completely. Yeah. And so huge shout out, acknowledgement to her. I don't know how she ran under the radar for us this long, but her surfing's also really well rounded and impressive. And then considering that you and I were hyping Caitlin Simmers so much this last year, do you have any thoughts on her and her performance at Sunset?
Not really, to be honest with you. I didn't even watch any of her heats. I didn't watch too much of the women's stuff. I think the one standout for me on the women's side was Carolyn Marks, in that, you could almost say, oh, she's kind of lost her way, so to speak. And I think she really kind of said, hey, screw you guys, watch me, here I come. And she sort of put a stamp of don't count me out at the Sunset event.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm still not convinced that she's here to stay. Like, I've loved Caroline since she got on tour, but I agree with you. She had kind of lost her way competitively and hasn't quite delivered on the potential that we all had for her when she was really young. So I think she still has some work to do and to make up, because again, there's this new crop that's just underneath her. She's kind of the entry crop between the old guard and this new crop. And so she's kind of fending off both. But I agree with you. Like, again, her backhand, I think, is her strong suit. And so that worked well at Sunset. And she's also powerful, so is Sunset. So, but I want to see her continue to do it. I want to see her do it in Portugal and at Bells. So, 2 interesting side notes. Kolohe Andino was his 100th event, and they were advertising that at the beginning of this event, like, hey, congratulations, Kolohe Andino. Somebody sent me a DM that said, awesome, 0 out of 100. Just as a little zing.
Hasn't he won one event? Didn't he?
He has not won a single event. And he looked so not in form for this event. It's actually kind of a bummer to watch, especially being from Southern California, where you and I are from. And he had, again, all of the hopes pinned on him for the next American world champ, and the fact that he's 100 events in and he's not winning, he hasn't won an event, and he's only looking kind of less and less competent each event. And then his protege, so to speak, Griffin Colapinto, is absolutely shredding and smoking Kolohe's stats. Kolohe's got to be going through it mentally right now, I would say.
Yeah, it sucks for Kolohe. You know, he was sort of the, the great white hope, so to speak. As a Southern California fan, he, and frankly, earlier on, Brett Simpson was a guy that I was rooting for, and then I was rooting for Kolohe, and now Griff is just on a whole nother level,
Yeah.
on each level. Like, he's easy to like.
Yeah.
He's got a great head on his shoulders. Not that Kolohe doesn't, but, and his surfing is, so Griff's kind of the guy if you're a Californian and you're looking for somebody to root for.
Can you even offer advice? Like, what does Kolohe need to do to revamp his program? Because I look at his surfing and I'm like, wow, he's technically very, very good. It's just 70% of what Griffin is. It's 70% of what Filipe is. It's 70% of what Kanoa is. Like, I don't know how he can rework and retool things to get to that next level.
Yeah, I really don't even have any advice. I mean, anything I would offer would just be, whatever. Like, the one thing that comes to mind is letting go, like the Kelly Slater moment where he was like, maybe you're holding on too much. Maybe if you just let go of it all and have some sense of the present and not having any sort of attachment to your result, and that's just a crazy headspace to find. But I think that might be one of the keys, is have that letting go moment. Maybe reach out to Kelly and just be like, hey, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like, it just seems like there's too much attachment, and the more that you don't perform, the more you hold on, and the more there's an old saying, it goes something like, what is it? Something about letting go of the wheel, like you're not driving, so let go.
Well, as I hear you talk about Kelly, and I think about there's always an opportunity for Kelly to just thrill, in a given heat, no matter where it is in the world. You're kind of going to tune into Kelly's heat because he could always just do something that you had never seen before or conceived of. Caio Abelli offers those experiences. Griffin Colapinto, Filipe Toledo, Idolo, Gabriel, John, they all offer that question when you're watching of, what is this person going to do next? Kolohe Andino never does, and in fact, I don't watch any of Kolohe's heats. If Kolohe paddles out in the heat, I'm like, sweet, get to go take my lunch break real quick and go heat up my lunch, like this. And so he needs to figure out, I think that goes hand in hand with the letting go thing, is he needs to figure out how to offer pizzazz, a little razzle dazzle to his surfing or something, as Ross Williams famously told John, I think it was, you got to dirty it up a little bit,
Yeah, it's an interesting situation with him because you're right. Like, it's almost like Kolohe came on the scene and then Kanoa showed up and sort of took the luster away. And then Griffin showed up, and like all these other guys are just showing up, and frankly, competitively, they're sharper, which surprises me because Kolohe's dad was an incredible competitor.
And Kolohe was in his youth too. Like, his amateur run was that.
I think that Kolohe is just a kind of a Geordie classic example of too much too soon. He got paid. He deserved to get paid.
Yeah.
He was a star for a while, but I think it's past.
Well, I mean, again, that DM summed it up for me. It just said, awesome, 0 out of 100. And it's like, dude, out of 100, if you haven't figured it out,
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's, the numbers don't lie,
Yeah.
which is a bummer to see.
It is. It's tough. You know what? It's professional sport,
Yep.
and we don't hold any ill feeling towards any of these guys, but it's our job to sit here and pick it apart and poke at it a little bit. And you know, like I said, I hate I'm just telling you what I see, and I could be wrong. You know, maybe I'm wrong. I hope I am. I hope Kolohe wins the next event. I'd be stoked. There's nothing that David and I would rather do than eat a little foot, you know, put a foot in the mouth and go, you know what, we were wrong. Congrats to Kolohe. You know, like we
Totally.
want that to happen, but
But
it's just hard to see it happening.
yeah, it is sport and it's not for the faint of heart. Also not for the faint of heart is Survival League. And obviously you and I lost in the first event, but I still played the game last week where I was like, hey, let's make sunset picks. I actually made all my picks for the season. Guess who I picked for sunset? Baron Mamiya. Guess who lost before the round of 32 and it's sunset? Baron Mamiya. I've lost 2 events in a row at Survival League. So even if Kelly didn't fail me, even if he gave me my $20 back, I still lost it. I threw it right back in the trash.
You're 0 for 100. And I picked Jackson Baker, who lost, who surfed an insane heat. I think he had a total of like 16 points and he still lost in a nail biter, like last minute.
Do you know who he lost to?
It was such a good heat. Might have been Jack Robbo. I kind of forgot.
I'm going to, just for the listeners' own entertainment, I'm going to continue making picks throughout the season. And at this point, I'm sticking to the picks that I already laid out. I'm not going to try to tank it and get 0 for 9 or whatever events there are. But it's going to be incredible comedy if I lose every single event. And I feel like I should win a prize for losing every single event if I do.
And I had you winning every single event since Pipe. But so tell me about Portugal. First of all, are you excited for the Portugal event?
No, and I hate to be a curmudgeon, but WSL CT events do not excite me anymore. And the excitement has been waning, which you can go back and listen to our shows over the years and you can identify that. They just don't really thrill me anymore, you know? And
what does thrill you, David? What does thrill you?
The eddy,
the waves, good waves, epic waves.
The Hui event thrilled me, you know?
Waves.
So, you know, just total side note, we'll come back to this, but side note, you know, we have been talking about Surfline's potential model that they need to really implement of streaming swell events around the world as they happen, like they did for the Eddy the day that it did not run. And I was like, man, the reason why they were able to activate for the Eddy was they already were planning on running the Eddy that day. So the film production crew was on site, ready to go. The event didn't run. And then Surfline made the decision, hey, you guys, let's just go ahead and work this day. We'll stream the event. And you and I watched it and we just thought, wow, this is incredible. Kind of had an epiphany. Why wouldn't they just do this around the world? They already have all of the hard work, like the details of knowing when and where the swells are going to be, providing that information to the surfers, the professional surfers themselves, and those people going, they know what surfer's going to be there. All they have to do is turn on the cameras and stream the event on their site, right? So the simplest part of the equation is the only part they have to figure out. Well, turns out the production company that ran that for the Eddy and also for the Hui Backdoor Shootout is called Salt and Air, which is Mike Prickett's production company. I recorded a podcast with Mike Prickett, which I'm going to publish maybe in a week or two. And he said he's already done the deal with Surfline. They are going to do it. So throughout this year, with major swell events around the world, Prickett and his team jumping on a plane, going to that location, and they're going to film it. They have no contract for the number of events. They're not trying to dictate how many times this is going to happen, but they are ready to go at the drop of a hat. And Surfline already agreed to do it. So it might be Cloudbreak, it might be Ireland, it might be Tahiti, but they will be there doing exactly what we saw for the Eddy.
Well, last week it should have been Australia, right? Australia had an insane run, at least Queensland and all that area, Green Mountain, all that, and even up into Noosa and past Noosa, some of those super special points that shall remain nameless.
Well, and that's the thing is he specifically said, look, we're not going to go blow up spots or anything like It's going to be at Cloudbreak, like spots, locations that
already have 75 guys surfing it.
Yeah, and also already, like if you go to the Gold Coast, there's 10 different spots that their film crew could be setting up that are equally as good. They're more going to these kind of iconic spots that,
Yeah.
So anyways, you can look forward to all of that.
Cool.
Yeah. But I'm sorry, where were we at in the, as it relates to,
I
we're talking about
forgot.
Survival League.
Oh, Survival League, Portugal. I was asking you,
Portugal. Okay.
you're not excited about
So
Portugal,
I'm
but
just
if the
not,
waves are 8 feet and spitting, and we see some good matchups, that'll be very exciting. It's just a matter of the waves. And the sense is that Portugal's let us down in the past. And so based on that, we're kind of like, I don't know.
well,
But of course, we would love to be surprised and be, oh my God, Portugal was so much better than, of course, Pipe and Sunset Beach. Wow, what a great event. We just have to wait and see.
yeah. So the point that I was working towards was, why am I not as excited about it? It's because the WSL isn't the only name in town anymore. Like 8 years ago, when I used to just watch every single minute of competition, it was because there was fewer things to satiate that desire to watch world-class surfing in my life. And now there's a bunch of other options. And so I'm not going to necessarily, again, the WSL watching an event 8 hours a day, having the volume up, listening to the commentary is a huge commitment of my life. It's a big ask. And I was glad to do it for a period of time. But there's more digestible content now that is actually more entertaining and equally as good. The surfing is equally as good and the waves are actually better. And that is what's occupying my interest and my time at this point. So the Surfline example is one of them, but there are other things as well. And some of it's just Instagram. But unless the WSL does run the event in pumping surf, I'm less likely to watch. And by the way, the Sunset event, I watch with the volume down almost. I watched, I'd
Well,
say 20% of the event. And of that 20%, I watched 98% of it with the volume down.
here's the problem. The problem is somebody would say, well, David, why don't you just watch the last day, the finals day, if you don't want to spend 4 days watching all the events? And the problem is that on finals day, generally, the waves aren't as good as they were in the earlier rounds.
Right.
Which is why we want less surfers on tour.
Yeah.
We want to be able to tune in for one day, because that's all the time we got.
Yeah.
And see the best surfers and the best waves. And as it is now, they're like, oh, swell's on. Well, the first 2 days of the swell are like elimination round 1, round of 32. And it's just too many surfers, man.
We've said it before.
They've got to just have 16 surfers on tour.
It takes 2 days of competition to eliminate 4 male surfers who were never a threat to win the event in the first place. And by the way, much less a world title. Every single event.
And nobody cares about.
And I'm telling you,
just get it down to who do we care about?
For 2 or 3 years, I would name those 4 surfers every event just to prove the point that these guys were never going to win the event or a world title. And every single time they were no-name people who are ultimately going to fall off tour later that year. And that remains to be true. So if you're wasting 2 days of resources, and by the way, diffusing our interest in the event throughout those 2 days, then what are the odds that we're going to continue watching through the rest of it? Or you're going to hook some elusive new user to then become a huge fan of the thing. You're not. You're basically shooting yourself in the foot. So,
and and look, all you got to do is look at tennis, which is a great example. Do I watch round 1 of tennis? No. I'll watch the quarterfinals, the semis, and the finals, so I can see, the best guys.
Yep.
And I think that's just a great example. Now, of course, tennis does have like 50 guys in the tournament, and you can watch the tennis TV and watch the early rounds if you want, and they're not dependent on swell. We are dependent on good resource here, and
which makes us unique and makes us better than tennis. We need to
only if we maximize it with the best surfers in those waves.
Well, you need to lean into what makes surfing unique and better than tennis and different than everything else in the world. That's what you lean into. You don't look to tennis for cues.
I'll watch the QS if I want to see friggin' somebody grind and try to
totally.
By the way,
If
so who's your survival pick?
okay, for Portugal, I've
Yago Doro is my pick.
oh, that's a very interesting one. I actually like it a lot. I gotta find my spreadsheet real quick. I'm
I'd like
sorry.
to know how many
Oh, I
people
think
are
Idolo.
left in. I like Elo. Yeah, that's a good one.
I
How
think
many people
Idolo is
are
mine.
left in this thing? Tyler needs, is it Taylor or Tyler? It's Tyler. Tyler needs to send us
Taylor.
some. Oh, is it? I always get those two names mixed up.
I know.
I have
It's cool.
my brain is, it's like Christine and Christina. I have an issue with some of these names.
I hate when
Susanna
you
and
run.
Suzanne.
I hate when you run into a Kirsten. It's
That's
like,
a Kirsten,
and then,
Christine.
and then they're offended. They're like, it's Kirsten, not Kristen. And you're like, well, it's one letter difference. Why are you mad at me? Like,
yeah.
it's an easy
It's
mistake.
David, not David. You
exactly.
know, like, come on.
It's an easy mistake to make. Okay, so my Portugal picks, again, I had this spreadsheet with 4 kind of prioritized 4 athletes, and if they did not rank high for different events, then I would use them in the given event. So like John ranked high for pipe, high for sunset. So, but he also ranked high for bells, and he also ranked high for Margaret. So I couldn't use them at all. So I have to kind of prioritize. Anyways, Idolo was my pick for Portugal. I think I also had him in.
You're gonna lose. You're gonna lose. I could see Idolo just completely failing.
That's the problem.
That's scary. That's a scary pick. That is a
he-
scary pick in my
He
opinion.
was a
Idolo's
safe pick. He was a safe pick for so many years. He is a scary pick now.
He's a scary pick.
I'm sticking
You
with it
could
though.
easily go with like Jordy and feel a little more confident than Idolo.
At this point, honestly, if I was still in the game, I would very much consider adjusting.
That young could
Kyle.
win.
I'd pick Kyle.
Kyle.
Kyle feels safer to me now than.
Yeah.
Anyways, I have 2 other things related to sunset, but do you need your bathroom break yet?
Yeah, I do. Thank you.
Okay, go for it.
You're smooth. That was very smooth.
Thanks. All right, Scott Bass. Hey, I know you're in the bathroom right now, but we are still recording through the magic of technology.
What?
This is during your bathroom break, officially.
Oh,
that's where this commercial goes, during your bathroom break. So yeah, you're in there, but brought the mic with you, right?
Here's one thing that you should always bring with you, whether you're in the bathroom or not. Bring the knowledge of a great travel company on all your surf trips, the expertise, the ease of mind, the peace of mind that Waterways Travel will give you when you set up your surf trips this year. And this is the season, bros. February.
No kidding.
Now's the time to start booking your trips for those horrible July, August summer doldrums here in Southern California. Get away, get out of town. August, good time to go surf travel.
Absolutely. And waterwaystravel.com is where you do that. Waterways is expertly crafted surf experiences so that you can travel intelligently. There is nobody that I know of in the business who has more experience than Waterways Travel. So Sean Murphy's been doing it since 1994, setting up these relationships. And that's what they are, by the way. It's not just him going and getting barreled somewhere and saying, hey, you can go get barreled here. It's him going to a place, learning the ins and outs of how to travel there, working with local operators. So restaurant owners, hotel owners, boatmen, photographers, all of these masseuses, all of these things to and then maintaining the relationships over the course of the last almost 30 years. So these are nurtured, they're long-term, and again, all of the insights gleaned from that are available. They were available for the magazines and the pros for a lot of years because that's who they depended on, with Sean Murphy and Waterways. And now all of that information, know-how, intel is available to you, the user, the end user. So you can find it all at waterwaystravel.com. There's an inquiry button where you can search their website and find most of the information you need, but click the inquiry button and talk to an actual human being, and they will provide all the intel for you directly. So that's where you should go.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's so great. So look, waterwaystravel.com, check them out. No brainer. Okay. True story. I've got a prostate the size of a grapefruit. And I think I've told you this before, but I was in the hospital a couple, 3 years ago for something like, I think, I don't know, some old man thing, diverticulitis or something. And the doctor came in and I was like, I'm having problems, I'm not peeing as often, or I'm peeing too much or whatever, my flow rate, blah, blah, blah. And she goes, well, I can check your prostate for you right now, which requires sticking a digit up your anus, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, please, I'd like, because,
I'd like that.
no, well,
Yes,
I
please.
was like, so, so she checks my prostate, right?
Mm.
And I look at her nameplate, and her name's Dr. Wang. And my wife was in there. My wife looks at me. She goes, you realize you just had a wang up your butt? It's a funny story. True
Amazing.
story. True
It is
story.
funny. I thought this was going into an actual joke that wasn't true, so I'm shocked
No,
that
this is true.
that is
Yeah.
so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listener feedback from last show, we were talking about the Zeke interference,
Yeah.
and that was a big controversial thing. And I kind of took the stance. He tried to hold me accountable a little bit, but I took the stance of like, look, Zeke got screwed. The WSL botched this. And I don't even like Zeke, but he got screwed. I got a lot of feedback from listeners making the opposite argument. They're like, look, Rio Waida knew that the priority flipped. Leonardo Fioravante obviously knew that the priority got flipped because he was shouting to Zeke. If both of them knew, then the WSL did their job. You know what I mean? By
Yeah.
letting the competitors know. So it's on Zeke completely. And it's
Yeah.
further evidence of why we don't like Zeke.
I
So
kind of agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, it's hard to argue against. And it also, a number of people also pointed out that it seemed odd that Zeke was doing that move to help out Leonardo because Zeke was in first, Rio was in third. So even if Rio moved to first, Zeke would have stayed in second. Zeke was not going to lose that heat no matter what. So him doing
Yeah.
that blocking thing was really to help his buddy, Leonardo, who used to be on the same team. And Leo even
Yeah.
said as much in that post-heat interview where he revealed all of it. He goes, oh, Zeke was trying to help me out, So it's just
Yeah.
kind of weird that you would prioritize some stupid tactic over just coming out
Getting out of the
clean in
heat.
the event. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Anyways, done with that. I have a listener feedback about Sunset, and the subject line just says more foam. Listener said Filipe is a sunset. Oh no, that's not his note. That's mine. It says, sorry. It says, quote, watching sunset finals in falling swell got me thinking about boards. Why is all the classic footage of Hackman, Buttons, Buffalo, and both the Thompsons sliding similar sized sunset so much more thrilling and vital than any of these recent comps? Sure, today's equipment can allow for more quote extreme maneuvers, more vertical, steeper hacks in tighter spaces, but sunset as a wave maybe only offers 2 split seconds per wave for such feats. And watching mid-level CT surfers extend bottom turns indefinitely, tapping their front feet impatiently, waiting for a section to present itself, is vaguely insulting to sunset compared to watching someone flow through the entire wave with style and grace. There are those who can do both, John most obviously, but there's something vulgar about watching some guy on a 6'2 hopping and itching and salivating for a section to hit, eyeing up a wave like some piece of meat, and something even uglier about watching him kick out in frustration when it doesn't arrive, while the slightly tubby wave peels off, begging for someone with some patience, a little more volume, and maybe a 6 or 8 more inches to fit into its curves, to love it for what it is, like a grown-ass human alive with the world, not some geeked up kid living in his thoughts, itching to show you something, quote, cool. My dream judging criteria would include massive deductions for square footage of wave face wasted in service of some particular maneuver. That's not surfing. That's like a trick shot in pool. Might be impressive, but has nothing to do with the game itself. And regarding the judging criteria, he said, and -1 whole wave score if your board is just too damn small and I have to watch you chattering around, stomping on your front foot of your board, or anything else equally undignified, just so that you can thrash some millisecond of vertical section or otherwise chubby deep water wave that requires some gosh darn flow and variation surf competence. Why can't we judge that skill, adaptability? And if you drift out the back of a decent one because your little potato chip just doesn't have enough oomph, you get immediately ejected from the competition. Come on, let's try to have some self-respect. And to be fair, if you can pull off the trick shot in the game because this situation genuinely demands it, then you earn triple the points. Monty from San Clemente.
Yeah, I mean, look, you and I've sort of highlighted what Monty was getting at. We've been talking about that for a long time. At the end of the day, Sunset needs to be 8 to 12 feet to run a legit contest there. And at that point, we can say, look, you have to ride the west. If you catch the west peak, we're going to score you higher than if you sit on the inside and just wait for the bowls.
Exactly. Yeah. The points just have to reflect
it's pretty simple, you know, and everyone, and I know this year Kong and others chimed in on it, but I mean, that's something that you and I've been seeing I've been seeing that's Marty Thomas and I were seeing that when we were doing a surf talk radio here in San Diego. We're like, where's friggin' Kong rolling down the windows on a 8.6 ounce burn channel bottom, you know, late drop? And the thing is, there's a tube out there. There's barrels out there. Well, but anyway, we need 8 to 12 foot sunset.
I had a thought after reading that email that relates to everything we've been talking about, which is now that the CT is running events at sunset, it really is a wave that requires a certain type of board. But the shapers, and for a lot of years when there was so much media focus on sunset, there was a lot of boards designed for sunset. I think now we're going to start seeing that maybe in the next year or two, where the shapers are really designing a board that's specific to sunset. And it's not going to be a 7-foot single fin, but it might be something that has more forward foam, you know, where they can paddle around in that playing field a little bit more. And the bottom turns will be longer and more drawn out. And the tails can be narrower, and maybe they have channels, and they're still going to be thrusters so that they can do turns in that moment where it does get vertical, but they need the forward foam to really glide through those fatter sections of the wave, because the fact that they're riding the exact same shortboards that they were riding at Pipe or wherever else, this listener highlights, does a certain disservice to the wave. There's a lot of sections, the majority of the sections on that wave, that are not really designed for that style of board. And when they do something explosive, we almost forget that they did a bunch of chattery triple bottom turns to get there. But if somebody unlocks that new board design that really fits that wave well, I think that it would turn heads.
Yeah, I think it would be fun for those guys too, for Marcio and Matt and Darren and all the guys that are designing boards for the pros, Britt Merrick, all these guys. I think they'd be psyched to build boards for Big Sunset for the competition. What really has to happen is the judging panel needs to set, basically they need to set it up so that if you don't ride a big wave outside, you're not going to get a big score. It's just that simple. You can sit on the inside and pull into sick barrels. The most you're going to get is a 6.
Yeah, that's fine. Award 6 points for this.
Because once you do that,
4 points for that portion.
Because in some ways you can't blame the competitors. They're just surfing to the judging criteria.
Yeah.
You know? And so if you make the judging criteria, look, catch the biggest west peak bomb you can catch. And oh, by the way, if you're lucky and it sets up with a wall down the line on the inside and you pull in, you just got a 10, you know? And
yeah. Well, the obvious thing that listeners are probably screaming at the radio about right now is, look, if the swell doesn't allow for West Peak Sunset, then all of your guys' points are moot. what
Yeah.
you and I know that, and what's baked into our conversation is that the WSL needs to revamp the program so that they can run the events in the best surf for a given spot
2 days.
throughout yeah,
You got
exactly.
2 days. You
So
got a 2 day swell. You got 2 weeks to find 2 days.
there you go.
Get it done.
Yeah, exactly. Transitioning away from the Sunset event, Make or Break season 2 is currently on Apple Plus. How excited are you to watch? I presume you've burned through all the episodes already.
I actually kind of do want to watch it. I haven't watched it. I've been enthralled with the PGA Tours version of that, made by the same production company, I believe. I believe it's the same production company, the ones that did F1.
Make or
And
Break. Or I'm
it's
sorry,
called
Box to Box is the name of the company.
and the PGA version is called Full Swing, and it's about last season, just like Make or Break is about last season. And with the PGA Tour, it's all the drama of that Saudi Arabian Live Tour kind of taking over. So there's a bunch of really interesting geopolitical international intrigue behind it all. But I saw that Stab did a review on Make or Break, and they said it was great. And I'm sure it's really good. I do want to watch it, I just got to get pulled away
It's
from what I'm
funny.
watching.
Isn't it funny how little we care? Like, I watched season 1 and I liked season 1. And when I heard there was season 2, I was like, oh, cool. I'm glad that they're doing season 2. Then it was advertised that it was dropping, and I'm like, eh. And then it dropped, and I'm like, it's low priority for me. I don't know why.
Yeah, I think part of it is that we're pretty close to everything already. We sort of feel like we know everything, but we don't. By the way, I think that they do uncover stuff. You do get a little bit more understanding and nuance of each individual surfer, maybe some stuff that you didn't quite know about them or about their team or about how they prepare.
I'm wondering, like, when I think about season 2 of 100-Foot Wave, which should be dropping anytime now. I haven't
You're
seen a date.
psyched.
Yeah, I'm psyched. I'm going to watch
Yeah.
that. I'm going to watch that the night it comes out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's more than what you're saying. I'm wondering if it's that our general kind of malaise as it relates to the CT tour has kind of transitioned into that viewing as well. It's like they've eroded so much of our interest in this thing that we loved so hard that we just it's hard to go back to it almost. It's going to take a lot of work to drive us back to it.
Think if you're a production guy on Make or Break, or you're a writer, and you've got 2 days out of a 12, 15-day waiting period to get epic waves. And so you're leading into, let's say you're following Kanoa and Griff for one episode. And you're learning all about them. And oh, by the way, the swell's on the way. People are psyched. They're going to be surfing 8-foot J Bay, guaranteed. And it's going to be finals day. And each episode is like that of Make or Break, rather than, oh yeah, finals day came,
Yeah.
They're not going to say anything negative about 3 to 4 foot Sunset Point, but it all comes down to the waves of the stars.
You're 100%
Make or Break would be better if we knew, God, that season was insane. Every single event had killer waves, more or less. And so it'll be fun to watch Make or Break, because we're going to see these guys geeking out about board design or whatever, So I think a lot of it is that.
You're 100% right. I mean, we harp on it all the time, and it still surprises me when we land on it. But for 100-Foot Wave, the premise of the show is we're looking for the biggest wave. And so I'm viewing it. I'm going in to watch it to be like, gosh, are these people going to find the elusive sea monster? Whereas Make or Break, it's manufactured drama in dribbly surf.
Yeah, that's it. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to who are the stars, what are the stars, and we do beat it like a dead horse, but horse keeps coming back.
It really does. It's crazy. I got two important and
I have something important,
somewhat lengthy Dukes or Kooks, but
okay, let me talk.
those.
Let me chime in with my thing here. So the California Gold Surf Auction is coming up. It's in March. I've got a lot I want to describe for you, because I think it may interest you, David. It's 2 items. It's one lot. but it's 2 items. And this is a unique confluence of random, unexpected circumstance which took place. And I'm going to give you the provenance. These are the true events as told by Gary Proper, who's now since passed, professional surfer, East Coast surfing champion Gary Proper, regarding the events that took place to him one day in 1969. And I quote Gary Proper here. Bruce Brown, Mickey Munoz, and I were hanging outside the Hobie Surf Shop in Dana Point. I was on the West Coast to discuss my signature Gary Proper model by Hobie surfboards. Bruce Brown was filming on any Sunday out in the desert. And then an old pickup truck with 2 dirt bikes in the back pulled up, and Steve McQueen got out. Steve was in the movie On Any Sunday. I was introduced to Steve as the East Coast surfing champion, and he was friendly and conversational. And of course, Steve McQueen was my hero. I had an appointment that day with artist Bill Ogden, who was going to do the logo artwork for my Hobie signature surfboard. I was meeting him at the Sound Spectrum in Laguna Beach. Steve McQueen said he was going that way and would drop me off. So on the way there, Steve and I began talking, and we bonded around the fact that neither of us knew our fathers. Now, I don't know if it was the realization of traveling down Pacific Coast Highway with Steve McQueen, or it was my weak Florida constitution for cold weather that got to me. But suddenly I started to shake. As Steve McQueen pulled over to drop me off at the Sound Spectrum, he reached into the back of the cab and said, "You look cold. Here, I want you to have this." And he handed me the leather jacket. So what we have here, end of quote, by the way, end of story from Gary Proper. What we have here is 2 items in one lot. We have the leather jacket that belonged to Steve McQueen that he gave to Gary Proper. And we have a Hobie 1967 Gary Proper model Hobie longboard. These 2 items make up the one lot, a surfboard and a jacket, Steve McQueen's leather jacket. Oh my. California Gold Surf Auction bidding begins March 11th. Bidding closes March 25th. Register, bid, and win. You can download the app or use your laptop computer at home to bid from anywhere in the world. Boards by Brewer, Pat Curran, Sean Stussy, Jerry Lopez, Barry Kanai, Pooney, Mike Hinson, Greg Knoll, a host of others. Oh my God.
Butch Van Aertstalen.
Butch Van Aertstalen, baby.
Incredible. What a story, man.
I know. Cool story. And there's a letter of authenticity from Gary with letter. You know, what's interesting about Gary Proper? He was smart enough. He swooped in on the rights to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. He made a fortune on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie anthology, or however many they made.
It's still going, I think.
Yeah, and he's
since
passed, but he was a promoter in Hollywood. Like he promoted a bunch of musical acts that we all know, like I want to say like Talking Heads and some others. And he was just, you know, a mover and a shaker, super good guy, Gary Proper, super fun guy, and just sort of gregarious and just knew how to, you know, create and maintain relationships. And the comic book wasn't his rights. He got the rights to the films. So
interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea. It's I mean, they're surfers. I wonder if he influenced the storyline at all, because Michelangelo, the one brother, is like a full surf dude, cowabunga and all that kind of stuff. So
there might be some of that.
Might be based on Gary Proper himself.
Yeah, because Gary was kind of a cowabunga guy and an incredible surfer. As I mentioned, East Coast surfing champion. He was just really next level surfer.
Wow. Great history insights there.
Yeah.
And what a great, the jacket is a really interesting detail.
Steve McQueen leather jacket. Are you kidding me?
It's like he's synonymous with a leather jacket. He's the king of cool, you know?
He is the king of cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Very cool. When is that California Gold Surf Auction?
March 11th,
Okay.
bidding begins March 11th, and then you can bid for 2 weeks. Bidding begins closing March 25th at 5 p.m. Pacific
Okay.
Standard Time. And this is a no reserve lot. We're selling this jacket and surfboard together in one lot, and there's no reserve. So we're selling it no matter what.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I've got a Duke and a Kook. My Duke of the week is Big Mike Delaney, laminator at Pure Glass. Have you seen what's going on with him?
Fill me in a little bit on what's going on with Mike.
Well, so Mike is a laminator at Pure Glass, which is a surfboard.
Yeah, I know Mike. I know Mike.
Yeah, surfboard manufacturing facility in Costa Mesa. If you've had a board in Orange County from Mayhem, Roberts, Hobie, Infinity, Doc, Patterson, Panda is there. Panda Blake Shapes at Pure Glass, and then has his boards laminated there. So all of those board manufacturers, Cordell, E-Strats, Strata.
Bunch of people were missing. Like, they make a ton of boards at Pure Glass, and Mike Delaney laminated them.
Dano, yeah, exactly. There a lot of those boards are laminated through that facility. And yeah, so over the course of 20 plus years, Mike has laminated. And again, Idolo, I said Timmy Patterson, Idolo's boards. They're laminating Idolo's boards. Some of the event winning boards that he's ridden, have been laminated there. So they do incredible work. And Delaney is the guy and has been there for a long time. Anyways, he posted on Instagram 3 days ago about his father being diagnosed with late stage Parkinson's, advanced Parkinson's. Actually, I'm just going to read it. I'm going to read it straight to you. He says, "Hello, friends. With a sad heart, I'm sharing with you that my dad, Richard, has been diagnosed with advanced Parkinson's disease. Being an only child, I need to make the move back to South Carolina to help my mom with the day-to-day care of my dad. The decision was not easy, but I need to leave the surf industry that I love to care for my family. It's been an emotional decision, but it's the right one to make." He set up a GoFundMe account primarily to cover the expenses of the cross-country move. It will also give me some time to find a new profession outside of the surf industry. Please pray for all of us, then, that we adjust to this new reality. My family and I thank you and appreciate your generous donations. Please share this with your friends on social media. Thank you all in advance. And I'll keep you updated on my move. Humbled and grateful, yours truly, Mike. And the reason that I bring this up is we see lots of GoFundMes throughout the year for a lot of various things, and some of them are very, worthy and all that sort of stuff. But what we constantly talk about here on the podcast, year in and year out, is that board builders are underpaid and that they need to charge more for surfboards. And even if they do charge more for surfboards, oftentimes it's the shaper whose name is on the label who is, getting that money, and laminators, sanders, fin setters are just paid basically per unit and not paid enough, And so this is the real world implication of these people not being paid enough. These are people who don't necessarily have a 401k set up, don't have a retirement set up, and they're also not earning enough money. There's no amount of boards that you could laminate through the course of the day that will allow you to make meaningful contributions to those things in order to have the rest of your life set up. So you and I, who buy surfboards and who ask for deals on surfboards, ask for discounts and all that sort of stuff, are doing it at the cost of these individual laborers who then ultimately find themselves in a position later in life where they have to make a tough decision like this. Like, Mike loves the surf industry and would love to work in the surf industry until his final day, I'm sure. But there's extenuating circumstances in his life, a sick father who has eliminated his ability to actually do what he loves. And also consequentially, because we don't pay enough for surfboards and because we ask for deals on surfboards, doesn't even have the financial kind of wherewithal to go spend time with his, ailing father. And so it's a really unfortunate situation. I hate to see it. Mike is also not only a super talented laminator, hard worker, all that, he's a great dude. And so I'm going to focus as much attention on this GoFundMe as we can. I'm going to post it on social media at Surf Splendor. I'll post it in today's show notes on Surf Splendor podcast. But for anybody listening, it doesn't have to be $100, doesn't have to be a big amount of money, $20, $5, whatever you can. If all of the listeners right now that are listening to this show chipped in $5, it would go a long way to Mike's servicing Mike's goal, eliminating some of the anxiety and stress that he's feeling regarding this, and allow him just to spend quality time with his mom and dad,
well,
which is limited.
Well put. I know I just sent $100 to Mike, and I'm a big fan of everything you just said, and it's all true. And what a great guy. And my thoughts and prayers, because I do pray, are with Mike and his father, and of course his father's wife, who they've got a tough road ahead of them here.
The prayers part, I think, is important, agnostic of your religious affiliation or anything like that.
Yeah.
I was talking to, again, Mike Prickett, who has had 2 major injuries in his life. He broke both of his legs when he was 18 in a car crash, and the doctor said, you'll probably never walk again. And he did. And then 10 years ago, we talked about it on this show. He had that situation in Tahiti where he got the bends, and he's been paralyzed ever since. And by the way, he did that. The reason why he got the bends was he was rescuing a diver. He saw somebody in distress, and he went down and rescued them. And that person was out of air. And so Mike gave his oxygen to that person. And that person was so panicked, they were like sucking up, tons of oxygen. And Mike was just sipping off of it. And then they had to make the ascent really, really quickly. And, oxygenated their blood and that sort of thing. The guy who he rescued, by the way, survived with no problems. Mike, the rescuer, ended up having paralysis for the rest of his life.
That's horrible.
Anyways, the reason I bring this up is Mike has recovered from the first one, and he's made a lot of progress. He's now walking with crutches. He's made a lot of progress in this injury that the doctors never anticipated. The doctor said you will never walk again both times. And Mike attributes his progress to optimism and having willpower. And he's like, I just didn't accept it. Like they said I would never walk. I was like, I just don't accept that fate. I don't accept that reality. I am going to overcome. And I think there's so much of that matters with, it's a lot of it's psychosomatic, but a lot of it defies science even, and flies in the face of what the doctors kind of vast training would allow them to believe. And so as it relates to Mike and his dad, or anybody else who's going through any hardship, chin up. Scott said he's sending prayers. That kind of energy, that kind of optimism matters. And so, focus on that. Focus on the good. Focus on the healing, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And send some money to Mike Delaney. GoFundMe. How do they find that GoFundMe page?
It's on Mike Delaney's Instagram account. I don't think there's really a quick URL, but I will post it. We'll post it on social media. Mike Delaney's Instagram account is a Kook named Mike, and it's each word is kind of has a underscore in between it. So _Kook. Go on, name Mike. So you can find it there. Google it.
Cool.
Search it. And then I also have a Kook of the week, which was a breaking news story yesterday, which I think will start making its rounds today. But listeners in Maui clued me in on this. They started sending photos midday about a luxury yacht that was dry docked at Honolua Bay, and right on the reef where the wave breaks, just a totally gnarly kind of setup. But the initial news story said that a vessel has run aground at Honolua Bay. The State Department has confirmed this. This was an update from a Facebook post. The locals are definitely getting restless and upset, but the private yacht for charter that is run by, dang it, scroll just started at the beginning. It said it's run by the Nolani Yacht Charters, is called the Nakoa. It's basically a fancy yacht that takes people on vacation, and there is a nonprofit that is going to help remove the boat. But until then, who knows what's going to happen? The Marine is a wildlife sanctuary. The Ocean Kai filed complaints with the company, and you can too. What will happen if the fuel begins to leak? This is a very precious habitat. The reason that we're posting this is because we want the owner to pay for the cleanup. Taxpayers should not get fined for this infraction. This is a luxury yacht taking people on vacation that is gallivanting, and they run aground at an important sanctuary, wildlife
Wow.
sanctuary. So you can
Yeah.
file your complaint. I'll post the link to that to ensure that the company that's responsible ends up paying the fees for all of this stuff and not the taxpayers.
Yeah. No, that's good for sure. And I hope the owner of the yacht steps up and does the right thing here.
Yeah,
Hey, by
absolutely.
the way, just before we go, let me tell you that we're about to get hit by a massive storm and some pretty strong coastal winds, probably 30 to 40 miles per hour right on the coast, with maybe gusts up to 50 miles per hour. So be careful out there, because the wind's going to be stronger than probably anything we've had all winter. And it's going to be massive wind swell, 12 to 15 feet of wind swell tomorrow, with white caps, Victory at sea, blustery. It's going to be pretty dangerous. So, and then we have a full tide mid-morning, so be careful.
Yeah, and cold too. It's supposed to be frigid,
But cold. Yeah.
but cold.
Yeah.
Cover your butts.
Right. All right. Well, look, David, until next week, adios and aloha.